tell us the first time you were aware of these sort of experiences happening to you?
I was 7 years old.
It started when Mark was a child. Something strange touched his life, and it still haunts him to this day.
I was asleep in my room. I woke up one night to this weird silence. These bright beams of light came in through my window and started searching through the room. Curiosity kind of overcame my fear.
Many have speculated as to its nature. Is it dreams?
And if these are dreams, then they're dreams that I'm sharing with thousands of other people who are having the same dream.
What's happening, Grandfather? Is it gonna hurt us?
No, it's not.
Some say it's just our imaginations.
Just saw a meteor, Mark, that's all. Next, I'll have you seeing leprechauns. How about banshees or ghosts?
I saw those things. And I saw the red light in the sky, and so did Mark.
Your grandfather sees all kinds of things, Mark, but I wouldn't take it serious.
No, we saw it. It was real.
My grandfather told me so many stories of experiences he had in Ireland.
It's true, I saw those things. And the story I'm about to tell you is real. It happened.
But he wasn't just telling stories. He really did have these experiences. You could see the look of fear in his eyes when he told them to me.
I will never know what I saw that night. And I will never forget it.
Still, we're told it can't be real.
Cannot separate from that which you're a part of.
But something is there.
I remember very well the first time this all started. I was only 7 years old, sleeping in my cozy bed in our San Francisco flat. My bedroom was part of an old San Francisco house turned into 2 flats years ago. We lived in the lower level flat. It was a cozy old building that was once a Victorian house, now modernized. As I sleep soundly, I had no idea what was about to happen to me. The most important experience of my life, and that it has been. Something totally unknown and strange was about to make itself known to me and forever change how I view reality. My life at this point had been average for a boy growing up in the 50s. My parents both worked and I went to school. I was an only child with no brothers or sisters. I had a large bedroom to myself that looked towards playland and the ocean. My interests were different than most kids my age. I had my eyes on the stars. I loved astronomy, art, science, and music. I still joke today that my first football was a telescope. I always wondered when I looked up at the night sky what was out there. This night, I would find out.
I'm a nurse, I'm an x-ray tech, I'm a science person. I am balanced and grounded. But I knew what it was. I knew what happened to me. And it's still there. So I opened my eyes. And right before me, not a half a foot from my face, was another face. And I looked at it and I screamed and I leapt out of bed. I see a tall figure in the doorway. It's very tall and it's kind of a triangular head and it's a very skinny body. And I'm thinking, what is this I'm looking at? And the first one comes up right next to me, right up about at my hips. And he extends his arm like this. And he has these long hands and long segmented fingers.
There we go. Welcome to Breaking the Silence, our regular Friday night, for some of you, live stream where we have really amazing guests, and we have a really amazing guest tonight, and someone who I wasn't familiar with and who reached out to us, and I'm sure he's going to have some pretty amazing experiences to share with you. Although he's written fictional books regarding the subject matter, there's a really good reason why he did that. And I'll let him tell you in a second. The communion letters, the next one, the visitors in the trees, is coming along very, very well. And that will be, I believe that's on the 10th of May, right, Mary? Is when that's going to premiere. And I'm going to start work on a new film as well. And yes, I've had some pretty amazing experiences recently, one that left me feeling rather out of place and physically ill for about 2 days. And then miraculously, I just recovered. Apparently something was put in my eye and went very deep, but that wasn't the stuff that interested me the most. It was the whole experience. You can read about it in under post. They call it post now, but it's community. So I'm going to bring on Paul here. Hey, Paul, nice to meet you.
Good evening. How are you, Steve?
I'm good. We've never talked before. Looking over, I wish I would have been able to get hold of your book and read through it. I wasn't able to do that. Even if I had, it's been Mary and I are the only two people doing the show, and all the filming and the editing, and I do all the editing, the filming, the visual effects. It's just the two of us, so sometimes it's really hard to get through. But looking over your bio is very amazing and very impressive, and I'm very curious about you and would love to hear your story. I'm not sure if you're familiar with my background exactly, but it's enough to say. Well, I've been having these. Well, that one little clip that you saw from my film, but something is there. That happened to me in 58 in San Francisco on 47th Avenue, and it was one of the first things I remembered strongly. I never forgot. Of course, years later, I've had a fascination with the subject, but also it was more than that, because I was seeing UFOs all the time, up close and personal, all through my life, and I really didn't connect the dots till communion. I've worked in motion picture and film, Hollywood, doing visual effects and creatures and, ironically, gray aliens and stuff for movies. That's sort of all of it in a nutshell. And then about a year and a half ago, we started this project. It was Mary's idea.
Hmm.
And I'm
No,
being
that-
reminded to hit the like, smash that like button. I can't remember the exact way to say it, but yeah, please smash and like. Anyway, so Paul, so that's a little bit about me. Let's hear about you, because that's why we have you here.
Yeah. Yeah, you mentioned that the book is fiction, but
Mhm.
it's actually, it could be an autobiography.
Mhm.
I guide the reader through the journey that I took from the time that I was a child, where I developed very early critical thinking based on my feelings about the Catholic Church and its teachings.
Mm.
And since I never was comfortable with the teachings, especially for 8 years in under the Catholic Church, I sought other things to believe in, to be enthusiastic about.
Mhm.
Science fiction was one. Reading H.G. Wells, Jules Verne, classics like that, and then at that time, the Mercury and the Gemini and the Saturn programs were in full swing, and I latched onto those, trying to gain as much an understanding of the technology as possible.
You're describing me, because that's exactly how I was. And my family was very materialist based, scientists and engineers and great artists, and they had no interest in religion at all. So
Ah,
I was,
okay.
but I didn't think much of it either, just like you. So
Well, it's not that I didn't think much of it. I thought I was very uncomfortable with the way that they were teaching. We were children, and they were giving us graphic descriptions of the suffering of Jesus,
yes,
the piercing of his limbs, or his extremities with these sharp spikes, and just the constant torture. I think I was the only child that was actually like grimacing, and I was almost feeling that pain. But what did not, um, what I felt uncomfortable with also was just the teaching and the rote. In other words, just telling us something and making us remember it, but not explaining. You know, what was virginity for a third grader. um we don't understand the concept of
hmm hmm
virginity, and other words that were so um so complex, and you only heard them in that context. So that's how I started out. um and, I gained an enthusiasm with science fiction and science and space travel. When I was in high school, a profound thing happened to me where I was listening to rock music on a station. I fell asleep, and then when I woke up, I was listening to the voice of Eric Von Daniken explaining how the Bible had passages in there that were actually misinterpreted, as actually being contact, a proof of contact and high
sure.
technologies. And the case in point that he pointed out was the book of Ezekiel.
hmm
And the next day I went to the high school and looked it up in the Bible, and sure enough, everything that he mentioned in there was in there. And that was another step in getting me to be more inquisitive of what we were being told or not told,
hmm
and just understanding or having a validation that what were being told in grade school was not entirely the truth.
Yeah. Well, that's
So
certainly true.
so fast forward, when I was a officer in the Air Force.
Mm-hmm.
I was at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base,
Boy. Okay.
and assigned to Aeronautical Systems Division. My project was, I was a construction manager. My project was on the second floor of a facility called Foreign Technology Division. And Foreign Technology Division, for those that don't know, was the organization that was responsible for collecting intelligence on the weapon systems of other countries, our adversaries, even our allies. We did that. And the reason was we need to understand the strengths, the weaknesses, how we can take advantage of their weaknesses and opportunities. And so they compiled this information and they sent it across the base, where it was the cradle of research and development for the Air Force at Wright-Patterson. And there they would just develop weapon systems or concepts of weapon systems that addressed the issues that were identified at Foreign Technology Division. Okay. So that's that organization. The building was a 2-story warehouse. It was a renovated or adapted warehouse, no windows, very large, and it was surrounded by motion detectors. And if you had a top secret clearance, you were still escorted around the facility. When I got through the double doors to get to my project, the facility was everything white. All the doors were white, no numbers, no names. There was no directory, and whoever was in one office wouldn't know what was going on in the other office. Each office had its own lock. So my project was on the second floor, and that also was through a series of locks. And the place was gutted because it was being prepared for a large computer system. At that time, it was in the mid to late 80s, and computers were very large then. And so this was supposed to be a massive computer system for Foreign Technology Division. So my goal there, my mission there, was to make sure that the drawings that were given to the contractors, which were called as-built drawings, reflected the actual conditions of the facility. And so that's what I was there to inspect. So I was going through the as-built drawings, and I saw a sheet that indicated there was a basement. And I thought, this was a warehouse building. Normally, warehouses don't have basements, but I looked at the outline. It matched the outline of the facility. So there, I discovered a hidden basement. As I thumbed through the drawings further, there was another sheet that indicated a 70 by 90 cryogenic chamber in the basement. When I saw that, I reasoned that there was sensitive information here that I wasn't supposed to be exposed to. Made sure that the escort did not see that I saw it, and I rolled everything back up and put it away. I kept that secret for 5 years after I left the service. And the interesting thing is that it didn't stress me out. It wasn't like I was holding this secret and I, had this pressure to tell somebody. No, I just filed it in the back of my mind, and I never used that information until I was watching Ancient Aliens in 2009. And again, they had Eric Von Daniken, and he was talking about Ezekiel and the book of Ezekiel. And then what happened was, it was like an epiphany. That, combined with my memory about Wright-Patterson, jogged me into being more proactive about being a researcher, about finding out things. And so that started me on this quest. All right. And I didn't realize it, but this quest started out with, finding out information about, for all kinds of things that the government was telling us. For example, I was researching the hidden information about inventions or patents that would save us energy. I would be researching about the big pharma. I researched about a group called ALEC, all things like that. And what happened was, as I was researching it, I was meeting people, and we also got on a discussion about extraterrestrials and aliens. And many of these people were telling me that they either had contact or they knew someone that had contact, they had testimony, but they were afraid to talk. And they were also pressured by their friends and their family not to talk because they were being ostracized. So I set up a Facebook page as a support group for these folks, and it was called Spirits and Healing. I had as many as 300 people in that group, and they were all talking to each other, and they were all exchanging information about their contact, their abductions. Even they had implants. Some people had implants or tattoos on them, burn marks.
I'm very familiar with it.
Yeah,
personally,
the other thing that these people had was some, especially the women, were psychic, and they also mentioned that they started to get better in the psychic by meditating. So
yes,
I naturally took up meditation, and then when I took up meditation, things really started to happen to me. And that's when, so for example, I went through a wormhole in meditation, which was an amazing experience, and I document that in the book. The other meditation that prompted me finally to put all this in a blog, okay, and the blog became actually the source for the book. Was a meditation where I would call the indigo cloud meditation. So what happened was I saw an indigo cloud in front of me, and not only did I see it, but I felt a euphoria, that a feeling that you never feel on Earth. It was just something special. And as I got closer to it, it dissipated, and I saw flashes of indigo all across the horizon. And as I got closer, the euphoria became stronger, and I got a message that those flashes of indigo were spirits between lives that were downloading or uploading information. They were either downloading their past life or uploading their next life. And they were all in this cluster, like a beehive of activity, right? And so what I learned was that cluster, that huge energy of all of those spirits combined, which were their own energies, that was what everyone calls God. That was the source energy. And when I learned that, I was back in my body. So those things prompted me to write this novel.
Wow, it's always difficult when someone's telling you these things to tell them that I know what you're talking about.
Well, that's good. That's good.
Not as many of us as I would like know what you're talking about, but Mary and I and Whitley, who's a close friend, Whitley Strieber, we know about this, and it's really it's the core of this whole experience. It's the most interesting aspect, the most important aspect of it, over collected spacecraft and bodies and cryo chambers. It's really about consciousness and what you're describing, the indigo. I mean, it moves me because I know exactly what you're talking about.
Right.
And so does Mary.
Yeah. So the book, what it does is it links the extraterrestrial phenomenon to our spirituality.
Yeah. it's a hard thing to do, though. Have you found it hard? Because I'm finding that within the community of people that have these experiences, and they genuinely do have these experiences, there's a real resistance against this information. And
True.
it can be frustrating. You cannot allow yourself to be frustrated by it. You have to understand, right?
Right.
And just keep doing the work.
Right. Well, okay. So one of these psychic women, she turned out to be my mentor because she acts as a medium.
Mm-hmm.
She goes into a trance. She gets information from what she calls the Watchers, and they contact me through her.
Wow.
And so she's told me, through their that I have been designated to be a counselor and informer. Nothing more, not a light worker, not a, not a warrior, just a counselor and informer. And that I need to continue to do what I was doing, that I was on the right track.
Mm-hmm.
So I reasoned when she told me that, that's when I decided to put together the outline for this book. And I did it in one sitting, in one weekend, 31 pages straight, and I never strayed from it. Now, don't tell me that's all me, because
No, I knew you were
think I
going to
got-
get to that. I have the same thing happen with me. The films I make, the last one I made, there was no script. I sat down at my equipment in my computer animation software, and I went from one scene to the next till it was done. It's like it's channeled.
Yeah,
because it probably is.
Right.
Just like Jules Verne. Right?
Or Einstein, or
yeah,
any
sure.
of those. Even Da Vinci, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, so the preface of the book guides the plot, and the preface is essentially about fate, destiny. We all have roles to play. Some have larger roles than others, but everyone has a role to play. And what's important to understand is that other people have a greater impact on your life, and you don't know it, than you have on yourself. Things happen, you don't know that they happen, but they impact others, and others impact, and it goes down the line, and it happens to involve something that happened to you, or made you make a decision, or even saved you from being in danger. But things like that are important to understand, that there is a plan in place, but we do have free will. But even with our free will, we still will be guided to where we're supposed to be.
Because we're all connected.
Right.
We're all part of that. We're all part of that indigo.
Right. Yeah. So there's other things that I could tell you. Are you familiar with Roger Dean?
I know the name, and I probably would need a refresher.
Yeah, he passed away a few years ago, I guess. Apparently, he was he was hired by the Army because of his psychic abilities to telepathically communicate with an extraterrestrial race. And
yes,
and he found out that they were using him in a way that he didn't like, so he kind of went rogue, and he would communicate with these beings, and they would tell him things. And one of the things that they told him, and one of the things that I keep getting, is that Earth is very important to the universe. What happened when we dropped the bombs in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, that was like a fire alarm throughout the universe. Why? Because one, we were children playing with matches, according to them, and two, our scientists didn't understand that the immense release of that energy at that short amount of time actually affected other dimensions. So
ripples in the pond.
Yeah. So after that, that's where we had the spike in all of these activities throughout the world, but mostly in places where we were experimenting or working with nuclear technology or storing nuclear weapons, and continues to this day. So Earth is a school for our spirits. It's the place where the spirit, which is an energy, is linked to us through our pineal gland, and only that way could the spirit understand love, pain, suffering, beauty, creativity, all of the things that contribute to the human spirit, to the human experience. That's how they gain that. And so, according to the extraterrestrials, our time on Earth here is really short compared to
Oh,
the rest of
yeah.
the universe.
Yeah,
So, and that's
exactly.
what they call it, a school. It may a lifetime may be long to us, but it's really short to them. And
And we
so,
agreed to do this.
yeah, and so this is where our spirits learn the lessons. And if we learn the lesson, then we go to that place and we ascend to a higher level. But if we don't learn a lesson, we come back, and that's where karma goes into effect, where the spirit is into a form where they're supposed to learn lessons that they missed previously.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't care about about humans. They care about the Earth more than they care about the humans.
Well, God, look at it. It's this incredibly beautiful. It's a living thing.
Right.
And
Yeah.
everything in it is connected and has to work together. And the only thing that's not working together with this planet is us.
Right.
The
So
people that have all the power and money are doing everything they can to desecrate the place to death
absolutely.
without any regard whatsoever. And then
Right.
you have us guys.
Yeah. So, the book is called The Disclosure Paradox.
Mm-hmm.
And disclosure, which is the act of applying pressure on governments and entities to reveal truth about extraterrestrials, technology, and such. I hypothesize that disclosure really is not in our best interest. And here's why.
Okay.
Because it's our DNA that is our original sin, not what the Bible says.
Mm-hmm.
It's our DNA that makes us violent, barbaric, having an irrational obsession with possessions, being racist to the point of genocidal. And that,
Mm-hmm.
combined with our intelligence, makes us the most dangerous species in the universe. That's why we are under a technological and social quarantine. Okay. So the hypothesis is that if we were to have disclosure, official disclosure, it would lead to contact. If we were to have contact, it would lead to an exchange of technology. If we were to have their technologies, our worst parts of our systems, our greed, our unethical behavior, all that would take that technology, weaponize it, and use it against them.
We've
And
already
they
done
know
that. We've already done it
because-
to an extent with Roswell.
Right. And so we, much like what we did to the Native Americans, the Monroe Doctrine,
Yeah.
Manifest Destiny, going to Iraq looking for weapons of mass destruction, spreading Christianity throughout the world, or even just going after rare materials and minerals. All of those excuses would be applied to what the extraterrestrials are afraid of. So the point is that if we were to have that technology somehow, there would be a preemptive strike. Okay. They're that concerned about it. And I'm pretty sure that they have told our governments that, and that's why the governments are so reluctant about disclosure, because they're being told that disclosure is not in our best interest. And so it's really for our own good that we should not have disclosure. We're not ready. Only when we are advancing spiritually, where we get rid of the violence, where we become more like Christ, for example, can we can we actually join with them with the universal community? And then we would have that technology, and then it would be like Star Trek.
You know, I worked for Gene Roddenberry and was a friend of his, and he would love hearing this. But what is amazing and what's happening, and it's happening right now as you and I speak to each other, and you speak to everyone here in our community, who are all people who understand this, people who have these experiences, is that the community of people who have agreed to come here and do the work we're doing right now is the only way to ease this culture into this. And I agree with you that the government coming forward tomorrow and saying, okay, we covered this all up, Roswell is real, and we have the bodies, and everybody knows it, that has half a brain. But those people who do know these things, that have the critical thinking, and they're not people who are full of hate and violence and anger. They're of a different breed almost, genetically speaking, and spiritually speaking.
Right.
And the numbers are increasing. More likely, it's probably that people, because what you and I are doing, and Whitley and everyone else, is getting more people to come forward. There's so many people I know, Paul, that from this show write to us all the time, who have been concerned about coming forward and speaking about what they know, what they've seen, and what they've experienced. But they're getting braver about it, and they're seeing that it's important. There's something in them that's telling them, I've got to do this, because it's moving us along. It's moving us towards that higher frequency. It's moving us towards that evolution of spirituality. What do you think about that? About all these people coming together the way they are? And I know you know a lot of them, and I do too.
Yeah, I reason that there are sleeper cells, on Earth. And, I didn't wake up until 2009, that's a long time of just being on Earth and not doing what I'm doing now. So there may be people out there that are old and have yet to have that epiphany like myself, but they will. And I think that it's part of a plan to, they want us to improve spiritually. They want us to join with them, because frankly, they like to come to Earth. Okay. They like Earth.
It's a beautiful place.
Yeah. I reason that the crop circles are nothing more than a very advanced form of graffiti. That's all. They come by and they say, okay, I've been here, and that's it. They're not puzzles. They're not secret messages. They're not prophecies. They're just graffiti. So they want to be with us. I think they like humans. I think they like a lot of the positives of humanity, the beauty that we can create, the music, I'm sure.
Yes.
But there's, there are things that are keeping us back.
Yeah, well, there certainly is. So you meditate a great deal, and Mary and I do meditate as well. We have a routine where we do yoga every morning. We meditate at the beginning. We do meditate at other times, and we certainly understand the importance of it. I don't want to say the power of it. One of the things that we've become very aware of more recently are the telepathy tapes, the podcast, the telepathy tapes. And if you haven't listened to them, I highly recommend it, because it connects directly in with all this. And so we understand that at one time we were basically, the human race was non-speaking. It was telepathic. And for a lot of reasons, we lost that ability, but it is reclaimable. And we know this because of autistic non-speaking children who were thought to be vegetables. Once they were taught to spell, to use devices to communicate through spelling, we found out a whole different story, that they absolutely were telepathic and they could read your mind and they knew everything that you were thinking, especially their parents. And so they tested it scientifically. They used scientific methodology to test these kids to see, completely cut them off. So they had no idea what their mother was looking at 2 rooms down with the doors closed. And they would word for word describe what she was reading, what she was holding in her hands. Their parents were aware that the kids were reading their minds somehow, but they didn't know what to make of it. It's turned into a whole science. So yes, these autistic non-speaking children are telepathic, and the things they know and the beings they communicate with are what we know. And they also know that we can get this back. And of course, our government wants to weaponize it right away. That's what we want to do with it. So I'm really hoping that these people are careful and they stay away. But have you found through your meditation and through all the people that you are starting to achieve some level of telepathic ability?
I wish I could say that I am. I feel that the meditations that I got, that I described to you, they were, it was like someone planted them in my mind. In other words, part of the deal of being the counselor informer was to get that information. And so the only way to do that was for them to allow me to see that. I didn't, it's not something that I could control, unfortunately. And I'm really not a good meditator.
Well, you got through a wormhole. That's pretty good.
That was okay. So I was advised like a few days before that through the watchers, through the woman, that I was going to get tested in meditation. And when that happened, I realized that was the test. I don't know if I failed or if I succeeded, but that was the test. So again, it wasn't me. It was somehow, it was part of the assignment. But I wish I could be a better. I could be, the one thing that I have when I meditate is I have a very good success rate of Kundalini. Almost, I would say like 90% of my meditations starts with Kundalini, and I find that really amazing. But then after that, it's just nothing more than relaxing, nothing more than shutting off the rest of the environment, and nothing more than focusing on my breathing. That's all.
Taking off the noise.
Yeah,
there's a lot of noise. Well, that's the pathway.
When
I'm meditating, I get, God, it's even when I'm not meditating, if my eyes are closed, God, the things I see. But I've been that way since I've been a child, and I thought everybody, when they closed their eyes, saw images and landscapes and symbols, and I never talked about. I didn't talk about it anyway. But later on in life, I was asking people what they see when their eyes are closed, and it's dark. You don't see anything else? No. And the more I asked, the more I got that. But every once in a while, I got some. Oh, I see patterns in like sacred geometry and glowing and all that.
Wow!
But not everybody has that, and I do. And so a lot of times when I'm meditating, or just waiting to go to sleep, and I'm laying back and my eyes are closed, I see all those patterns and everything, and all of a sudden they just sort of stop being patterns and beautiful lights and colors, and it just becomes, all of a sudden I'm like out of my body, floating over this strange landscape.
Wow.
Or I'm in a house against the ceiling looking down that I'm not familiar with. And I
Yeah.
think we all have that ability to do that. And I also think we all have ability to be telepathic. And one of the things that I keep learning from telepathy tapes from these kids is that one of the things they talk about is to notice the synchronicities. So a lot of people are looking for telepathy to be, I heard what he was thinking. I heard every word he said or she said, but it's not really that way. It's just that you feel what they're feeling and you know what they're knowing, and you see what they're seeing, but there's really not a lot of words.
Mhm.
And if there are, they're very short. So you need to look for the synchronicities. In other words, you'll be just thinking about something, and then you'll turn and look at the TV, and exactly what you were thinking about is on that television set.
Right.
We have to stop believing in coincidence. We've been told it's just a coincidence. How long throughout our lives growing up have we been told you don't have any powers and all that stuff is bullshit? And we have to turn that off. We have to turn that switch off and realize that, after about 5 synchronicities during the day, there's something more to it.
Sure. Yeah.
That is telepathy. That is being to a degree psychic, and so we really need to pay attention to those. They just, this show right now, because I didn't know much about you until you came on, and you start talking about everything that Whitley, myself, Mary, and several other people I know have been studying with regards to this whole experience, and you're talking about it. That's another synchronicity.
Oh, sure. Yeah. There were a lot of synchronicities with me that I documented. Some in the book, some that I just kept out. But and it had to do with meeting people. One that I have here in the book is a person I call the Divine Warrior, and he was a senior officer that worked with me at the district, and I wanted to have him open up his mind about extraterrestrials on Earth, so I sent him coordinates of evidence on Antarctica about extraterrestrials or anomalies, and he was interested in it. So he decided to have dinner with me, and we sat down. Actually, we were about to sit down, and before we sat down, something came into my mind, and I said, before we talk about the extraterrestrials on Antarctica, you need to know that we are in the midst of a spiritual war, and you are part of it. And he just turned all red. His face, he started to tear up, and he just revealed everything to me about contact, about visions, about meeting Mary, or a vision of Mary, about getting the sword of Michael in a meditation, or not meditation. He was in prayer, and seeing himself on the plains of Armageddon. All that stuff he just released to me, and he said, "I'm so happy that you told me that, because I thought I was going crazy." And then when I explained to him, what was happening, he was relieved. He was very much relieved. And so I asked, when I was writing the book, I asked if I could fictionalize his character, and he said, yeah. So there's a chapter called The Divine Warrior, which goes into this this interaction with him.
Wow. And, and you're describing him saying, I'm so glad you told me this. You know, now I know I'm not going crazy.
Right.
We are in our culture, even in our DNA memory that's in our bodies, which obviously are not who we really are. There's this thing that comes up that if you experience something out of the box that they've been keeping us in all this time, from school on up through religion and everything else, you immediately think, I must be losing my mind, because you were taught to think that way.
Mm-hmm.
You were taught not to think, not to
Right.
consider it, not to have critical thinking, not to observe it and say, no, wait a minute here. And that's really sad, you know.
Yeah,
People
there
just,
are probably messages that are being missed by a lot of people, and they don't
exactly,
realize it.
because they believe whatever goes up has to come down, and we know it doesn't.
Right.
But that's a universal constant on Earth. What goes up must come down. That's just one example.
Oh,
So,
sure.
wow.
So what do you think of the thought, also my hypothesis, or my tenet, is that the one failure of organized religion is using the human paradigm to explain something that is unexplainable, trying to explain what God is.
Well, they try to in the Bible, and it's full of if you read it and observe it from our eyes and from other people's eyes, like Von Donigan, Eric, you see it entirely different. You see people trying to understand something unknown to them,
Mm-hmm.
and trying to put it into a context where they can explain what they're experiencing in the only way they knew how.
Yep. And it's carried on for 2,000 years, 3,000
Exactly.
years.
Exactly. Yeah. I
Crazy.
mean, and Ezekiel, of course, is the biggie, but there's so many more in the Bible
Sure.
that are where people had experiences with non-human intelligence or spirit, disembodied spirit, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
So, but they were right about that indigo. And, you know, when you said that, I did an illustration back in the 90s when I was really aware that I was having these experiences and it wasn't dreams. And I tried to explain it away every way I could. I'm crazy. If I saw something in my kitchen and it wasn't a human creature, I would try to tell myself that I somehow hallucinated it, everything I could think of. But when I started finally realizing that that wasn't the case, and I did do some hypnosis, which was interesting, but I don't think necessary in the long run. I was in the thick of it, and I saw it as an abduction, as something that was against my will, but I never saw it as particularly a threat. I always try to understand the motives behind the visitors, that maybe that was only my perspective, and years go by and I've come to learn that that was always the case. But I've found it, that's something that you really, if you're having these experiences, you have to evolve with. The stuff we experience is just so incredible and unbelievable, and yet I saw it with my own eyes, and I've had other people with me when I've seen these things as well. So, and unfortunately, thank you, Judy. Unfortunately, a lot of them don't remember it, either because something was done to them so they didn't remember it, or they just decided that I'm not going to remember that, or I'm not going to admit that I remember that.
Sure. Yeah.
Because they don't want people to think they're crazy. So
yeah,
it's really hard. But the community of people that have these experiences and us all coming together is really helping.
Yeah. Well, it's baby steps, but we need to we need to go in that positive direction.
Well, it's happening fairly quickly in terms of first of all, time, as I'm certainly aware of, is really doesn't exist. It really doesn't. And as you pointed out, our time here on Earth is very, very short in
Hmm.
terms of measuring than we spend out of these bodies, in other forms, in other
Right.
parts of the universe. And
Exactly.
so what we're doing in this very short time, as it would turn out, because these bodies really only have the expectation of living, if you take care of yourself, a good solid 90 years plus, maybe, um, is a lot when you consider the time spent on Earth evolving from the very first small creatures up to human bodies. It's
Mhm.
it's happening very quickly.
Yeah.
At least that's the
So,
way I like to look at it.
so the paradox people find
Yes.
out at the end of the book. There's two paradoxes. One, the disclosure paradox is that if we do have disclosure, we're going to have consequences that were not expected.
Mm, I would agree with that.
Um, but the second is that the paradox is, which is deeper, is how are we as a human race supposed to improve ourselves spiritually if we're not allowed to know what's wrong with us? So, when they're hiding, for example, that we can help ourselves if we understand what is wrong with us. And what is wrong with us, as I mentioned, is our DNA. It's just like, trying to cure an alcoholic. The alcoholic must understand what is wrong first before they cure themselves. And that's the
Hmm.
first step for us. We need to understand our flaws. And when we understand our flaws, then we can work on them.
I'm going to put this up so people
Oh,
can see the
yep.
book. And of course, you can get this on Amazon. And you are writing another one too, aren't you?
I have written 3.
You've
Okay.
written 3. My goodness.
Yes. So let me tell you the story. Um,
Hmm.
I wrote this one in 2019, self-published. It was pretty successful. One of the characters first of all the characters in the book are based on real people. Okay. And I protect their identities by using fictional names, including the officer that I mentioned.
Hmm.
Um, one of the characters in the book has a profound background and history and personal history and experiences. And I got to know her very well, and she allowed me actually to fictionalize her in a prequel just about herself, and that was called What Doesn't Kill Her. So I wrote those 2, one after another, and not very successful. I was actually discouraged, even though I was told that I was supposed to be a counselor informer. Something didn't work out, so I decided not to write anymore. Well, a former Benedictine monk searched in Google extraterrestrials and religion and found the first book, and he liked it a lot. And he friended me, and he told me, what's missing from this book is the Shroud of Turin. And I thought, okay, that's pretty interesting. Well, he started sending me research papers on the Shroud of Turin. I've got over 300 PDFs of research papers from all over the world, different scientists talking about botany, talking about hematology, archaeology, all of the things that support the fact that it is authentic. And it turns out that this foreign Benedictine monk had been doing research for 40 years on the Shroud. And he's
Hmm.
well known. He's written 9 books on it. So I started reading the stuff that he sent me, and I thought, you know what, this could actually make for a good sequel. So I put together an outline, sent him. He loved it. 6 months later, I was able to put together a manuscript, roughly. I sent it to him, and he liked it so much that he's actually written the foreword for that novel. And that novel, which was supposed to be the third novel, will be the second novel. Now, what happened was that when I wrote that novel, I started to do, the usual thing about finding agents and getting published and all that. Well, I was successful because it was a good story. And I got a good editor. He has had friends that published for him. They liked the book. When they found out that I had 2 other books, they wanted the whole series. And so I got the contract for all 3 books because of that third book, which I didn't intend to write. So,
Wow.
yes, there is a sequel coming out. It is about the Shroud of Turin. There's links there about the Archons. You know who the Archons are, right?
Tell me.
They're a malevolent interdimensional race.
You
I guess
talk about the Arcturians or the Archons?
Archons.
Okay.
And people could say that they're demons. They are actually emotional vampires. They feed off of the negative energies on the planet. So, pain, suffering, hatred, even porn, all those negative energies, they feed off it like vampires, and they're addicted to it. And of course, when you're addicted to something, you want more of it. So they enable higher organizations on this planet, and they reward them by furthering the negative energies on this planet by having more wars or more murders or disease or anything like that. It benefits them. So anyway, I have them in that second book.
Wow.
And they are after the blood of Christ. So it starts out with a murder in the Vatican, and since it's a sequel, there's some people in the first book that are in the second book, and it turns out one of the main character in this sequel is one of the characters in the first book. And so I link how my feeling is that and after reading about the shroud and the blood of Christ, and understanding that the blood is actually, there's no human match for the blood type, and that
on
they've
the
also
shroud.
On the shroud, and they've also
Yes,
identified.
and there's been recent information about more discoveries made just recently about the shroud, which lean towards its authenticity.
Yes, and so I have an entire chapter about the shroud, going into botany, going into the pollen, the limestone fragments, all of that stuff is in there, and that's what is really strong about that book. But what I hypothesize is that having 376 verses in the New Testament about the blood is not a coincidence, that there's something special about it. And when they say that the blood of Christ is going to wash away the sins of the earth, people should think about that literally. So my hypothesis is, if we were to have technology, if we were to develop technology to harvest his DNA, we could then repair our own DNA and become like him.
That's fascinating. I've noticed over here in chat that some of the people were saying that the Archons are in charge right now. Based on what you said and looking without saying any names or anything else on what's going on, especially, no, it's all over the world, but it's happening here in this country. It always has been, but it's escalated recently. And it's my firm belief that, there's a battle going on. It's been going on since day one, but I really feel that there has to be a balance maintained. That's how things are set up, not just in this universe, but in all of them, in all dimensions. Because without that a balance, when it gets out of balance, then everybody loses, even the Archons.
Agree. Yeah.
Wow.
So I'm really excited about that. One's going to come out in October.
Well,
That
yeah,
one's
I can see that. Have you been approached at all about a film or a TV series or things like that? I mean, I've worked in the motion picture industry all my life since I got out of high school, so I just wonder about that. They're just be aware. That's all. If that should happen, protect your
I've
creation
got
at all
copyright.
costs.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they're really good about getting hold of things like Travis Walton's story and Whitley's Communion, and twisting it all around and making it into something that suits them and it doesn't represent the original material, the original experience at all in
Wow.
so many cases. And it's very disturbing, and it's like you just cannot sell out ever. I mean, I have no reason to. I don't think you do, or any other good morally centered human being. They say everybody has a price. I don't have one. Love.
Yeah.
I'll do it for love. I'm not going to do it for your darn money, and especially if I'm going to have to change anything about my philosophy and the way I see and do things. So, which is essentially Buddhist.
Yeah, exactly. I concur that I think out of all of the religions, Buddhism is the closest to the truth.
Yeah, it is. It's a philosophy rather than a religion. I heard that said the other day. We're getting some questions now, Paul.
Yeah. Okay. It's very simple. The interesting thing about that foreign technology division is that if you go on Google Earth and look for it, it's gone.
Well, that's understandable.
Yeah, it's gone. It's a parking lot right now. If you go and search the number of the building and the location, it's like it never existed. And I think that they transferred the cadavers in that chamber to Fort Meade. I think it's in Fort Meade right now. That's what I hear. So yeah, that cryogenic chamber, the location, it aligns with Phil Corso's book, The Day After Roswell, because he describes shipping them directly to Wright-Patterson, and
Right.
that's what I figured I stumbled upon. I wish I had the courage and the opportunity to actually go into that space and see it, but when you're in the military, there are rules that you're supposed to follow that are beyond civilian rules, and the military code of justice is different for military people. You really don't have that many rights.
No.
Have you encountered? I've seen flashes above my house. That's all I've seen. I haven't seen any vehicles. I think I saw something in a cloud formation one time while I was driving, but it appears that my role doesn't depend on having that information. I guess like my role is more about our spirituality and our evolution rather than the tangible things that people like to talk about. I do have I could tell you this. One of the people that I met, that I had contact with, that I mentioned that I, made contact with while on Facebook and stuff, doing my research. Her mother was CIA, and before the mother passed away, she gave her documents, and just for some reason, she passed them on to me. And these documents were about Dulce, New Mexico, and they were about the autopsies of aliens. And I also have the briefing document from the Truman administration to the Eisenhower administration detailing Majestic 12 and its establishment and policies. And that one I'm really proud to have. But
I hope you have it hidden away somewhere.
Oh, I do. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the thing about the grays, and I want I want to bounce this off of you. You know,
Mhm.
you get testimony from people that they have had positive and negative experiences with the Greys.
Mhm.
And my feeling is that, especially after reading about the autopsies, these Greys don't have internal organs. Their only organ is their skin, and it acts like the leaves of a tree. So they absorb their energy and they expel their energy through their skin. And then
Yes.
they have that brain, and of course they have muscle and stuff to move around. So my feeling is that the Greys are nothing more than an advanced android race that takes on the character of their masters, and the masters could be good or bad. And that's why
Yes.
you have those differences of testimony.
If you find the time, because I know how busy we all can be with all this, it's even hard to find time to go sit out in the stars at night. Um, I would, based on everything we've discussed, I think you would find it absolutely amazing to read Whitley's new book, The Fourth Mind,
Okay. I'm looking
because
for more to read. Yeah.
that's one you plan to read. He talks a lot about the. I was also made privy to the autopsy report that I got through Bob Solis. And then also it was put on Reddit, evidently. And as it's turning out, it looks like this is actually a legitimate document. And in
Yeah.
it, it describes everything you're saying.
Yep.
So even the fact that they also wear some kind of skin over their skin.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why sometimes people, if they touch them, they'll feel this oily, slippery thing going on, and which is probably their excretions. And other times they don't, because they've got the coveralls on, or whatever you want to call them. They're very tight fitting stuff. And I've seen them with it and without it, and without the black eye covers and with them. But
Mm-hmm.
then there's another one that I would always experience, was much taller and definitely full of spirit and thought, and very much in control, and taller and just different looking in the face than the little Grace. So you're getting more questions.
Yeah, I saw that. So there is a woman that I know that she's autistic,
Oh.
and she was an artist, and she would paint portraits of extraterrestrial races based on her past experience or her past memory of being
Wow.
an ET herself. And you know, when they mentioned about the mantids,
Mm-hmm.
she has portraits of mantids. She has portraits of different reptilians, good and bad. It's very interesting, all of the races that she's identified, and I feel that, you know, like that person asked, you know, could the mantids be the masters? Yes, and I feel that when Eisenhower had the meeting at Holloman Air Force Base in '54,
Right.
that
Mm-hmm.
he left, there were Greys over there, right? The Greys were there because their masters appeared more formidable to humans. So the masters made a decision not to attend. They sent the Greys, and they made the look that the Greys were the ones in charge. So that's how they work. You know,
Plus, they're expendable.
yeah.
They're expendable, and we know there's that classic X-Files where the Greys come in, and the president gets on his knees and gives them the flag, and then off to the left you see the women and the children, and being ushered off with them. It's very symbolic. And Chris Carter, you know, I worked with him and I knew him, and there's a certain amount of truth in that show. There really is. But yeah, I know well what you're speaking of. It's we've been on different, I wouldn't call it paths, but you know, different routes in getting to the same spot we're in now. which I find fascinating. And one of the other things that I am really curious about, and everyone listening, those of you that have these experiences, if you aren't autistic, take an autism test. I would be very curious because I took one and I was kind of surprised. I'm wondering how many people have these experiences and are connected in with this, have autism. It doesn't mean that you're non-speaker. It doesn't mean that there's plenty of highly functioning autistic people. I know many, and I just wonder how many of these people have autism.
Yeah.
It'd be an interesting thing to know. So,
well, and in my second book, which is a psychological thriller, and it's about a woman who is a psychokinetic. I pose the hypothesis that there is no human that is perfectly sane. We all have something that could be described as an abnormality, a fear, for example, talking to ourselves, something that takes us away from that perfection of being sane. And so the spectrum is much wider than you think.
Oh yeah, well, sure. I mean, so many people go through life thinking that there's a certain part of them that's crazy, that makes them abnormal, and they're not like other people. And then there are a vast majority of people who never have that thought. They just go through life. They stay in the box. They work, they live, they pass. And then they find out a whole bunch of stuff, but they didn't maybe learn what they were supposed to learn. So back they come.
Yep. Good point.
Wow, Paul, what an amazing conversation we've had. And this show tends to be that way. It was, I'm really glad that you came forward to us and asked to be on the show.
Thanks for having me. I enjoyed talking to you, and you're a validation of the things that happened to me.
You will get that from this community of people, and I will certainly talk to you to Whitley about you, because maybe he has a real fascination with, as is apparent by his books he's written, with the religious connection with all of this, the very things we've been talking about. And the book you described to me, I'm sure would really, I'm sure all of them would get his attention, but that could get you some more exposure about the work you're doing, because I don't think enough people know about you. I didn't know about you. So, and now I do, and now I'm fascinated, and I'm really glad to know you and to have this experience with you. So, yeah, if you want to ask Paul any other questions, now would be the time. And of course, I'll put up the image of his book again.
Yeah, you see, it got an award, best science fiction alien story.
Wow, that's not easy to get that award.
No,
that's great. So the book is doing very well.
Well, I could tell you this: it's got 4.67 on Goodreads, which is really good. And it's got 4.5 on Amazon. So it's a quality piece of work. I've cleaned it up with my editor that I made friends with, that we worked on the third book, and I learned a lot from the time that I first wrote this to now. I've become a better writer, and so it's a good, enjoyable book. It makes people think. If you read all of the testimony and the reviews, people say that it stays with them after they've read it.
That's always a very good sign.
Yeah. So, but you're right. People don't know about me. and I need to make it
Yeah.
make it
Well,
better.
we'll certainly have you back too. You have another question.
Yeah, I try every time that I meditate, I practice it, and I think it's a natural part of me that sets me apart from other people. It's almost effortlessly. It's not bragging. It's just that it happens that way. But after that, the quality of the meditation fails or falls. But one thing that I'm also quite I guess good at is the lucid dreaming, and I've been putting
Oh,
together a journal of my dreams, and
very
so
important.
they really stick with me, man. Some of them, and I have
For
documented
years,
a couple of the dreams in the book.
right? For years, they stay with you. They don't go away. And
No,
the older I get, and the more I get involved in this, and the more I work on my spiritual self or lack of self, depending on your point of view, and the diminishing of the ego, the more incredible my dreams are getting. And I really, when dreams leave me for 2 days, physically challenged, unwell, even,
uh-huh.
um, I have to question what's really going on there. I think a lot of it is I'm leaving my body and I'm going into other worlds and experiencing other things, which can be very dangerous on a lot of levels. You have to really be careful. But I've been writing about them a lot, and so I know exactly what you're talking about. We've been told dreams are just dreams, but science has never really defined what they are. And since they don't believe that we're anything more than our biochemical brain,
Mm.
then their study of the subject's very, very limiting for them. Because I do believe that in many cases we're being taken out of our bodies sometimes and willingly leaving it. And I've had a little bit of proof of that lately, which is like another whole show. But how do you feel about that?
Um, you know, I I think sometimes that a dream is our spirit uh, exploring other planes, other universes, because in the spiritual realm, time and space are irrelevant.
Exactly.
You know, distance doesn't matter. It's it's um it's just another aspect that is very difficult to comprehend, but it happens. And so what we may be dreaming may be from something happening somewhere far off, but somehow our spirit, goes to that place for some reason or other.
Yeah. During these encounters, these interactions with non-human intelligence, for lack of a better description, one thing I've always noticed, and this has also been while I've been in the presence of a witness, is that time just stops. There's not a breath of air. Every cricket, every dog barking in the distance stops. The wind stops. There's total silence, and the only thing you hear is your own voice and your own breath, which makes me think that they are. You think you're here, but you're really not. You're like somehow outside of time when
Mhm.
they're doing this. And this is why people can drive by and they won't even see what's going on. They just look and see a landscape. They don't even see you on it with your two telescopes and your friend that came with you who remembered it for 2 weeks and then forgot. Never had a memory of it again. Then that was in one case. So yeah, these things are not only related, they're one and the same. So, well, Paul, again, thanks so much for being on our show, and it's just been a fantastic show, and we really appreciate you a great deal.
Thank you. Maybe we could talk again before my second book comes out.
Absolutely. Let's stay in touch. You got my email, you got Mary's email.
Okay.
And if you want to call us, our phone number is easily found, or we can share it with you. It'd be great to stay in touch with you. I try to stay in touch with everyone because what's going on right now on Earth is so important, and we're all part of it. Trying to make it a better world.
I would be honored if you did mention me to Mr. Strieber, though.
Oh, Van Strieber, you betcha. I will. I certainly will. I hooked him up with my friend Simon Bown. Simon wrote a book about near-death experiences where he actually verifies them. And it's an excellent book. And if you read that book, again, like the telepathy tapes and Whitley's new book, they all dovetail. And this show dovetailed. It's constant synchronicities happening over and over again repeatedly. And it's like a domino effect. The more they happen, the more they are continuing to multiply. So keep watching.
Are you going to tell Whitley about my book?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
great.
no, I will. Absolutely.
All right.
All righty, Paul.
Thank you very much. Have a good
Thanks,
Friday.
everybody. Thanks for your support. We love you all. We're so glad to have you here tonight.
Can I say one thing?
Yes,
my
you
website,
may.
www.thedisclosureparadox.com. People go in there. They could read about, the books. They could read.
Yeah, I should have had that up. Mary, can you pop that up real quick? Paul, say the address again.
Thedisclosureparadox.com. All one word.
Okay.
Yeah.
She'll go right to it.
They could read.
We had that up earlier. It's a great site. I was there.
They could read characters, descriptions. They could read chapter excerpts, all kinds of stuff. It's a really well done website. There you go. And
do you ever plan to write a book, nonfiction book about yourself and about what you've experienced all this time since, what was it, 2008, did you say?
2009, yeah.
2009, yeah. Might be something you want to think about.
The only reason I didn't do a nonfiction book is I can't compete with people like, Whitley or.
But there's no competing, Paul. There's no competing. There's only sharing the information and getting it out there. We don't compete.
But and the other thing is that I don't know, a lot of people that I want the book to read the book are people that don't read the nonfiction stuff. You know what I mean? They kind of shy away from it.
No, I know exactly why you did what you did, and it's great because you're getting the information to these people who won't read nonfiction.
Right. That's the point.
I mean, one of the only bad review that 1-star review that Whitley's book, The Fourth Mind, had recently, where the guy said it wasn't entertaining.
Okay.
That in a nutshell, I think, describes it. Forget all the information's in it. I'm not interested. I want to be entertained. So you're entertaining and you're
right.
Do you think that the people reading your book know that there's more to it than the fiction?
Absolutely.
That's good.
It's like getting into a warm bath and easing yourself in, and then you start to be comfortable with the words and the stories.
I'm sorry to laugh because I was describing that very thing to you yesterday, Mary. I was talking about the frog in the boiling water. Saying this is how we have to do it. We have to slowly turn up the temperature so that,
right.
So there's another synchronicity. And on that, I will end the stream. Paul,
all right.
Thanks so much.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.